So I'm going to run a demonstration on how you can do this. I think this is going to be really useful whether you use or you don't use WiseCost, because it's the same process you need to do in a Google Sheet, in your own software. So, well, as I was saying, in WiseCost, the 3 steps you need to follow are really simple. When you create a WiseCost account, you connect your QuickBooks account. We will migrate in 2 minutes all your information from QuickBooks Online to WiseCost. We've run all the compliance and security process with QuickBooks Online. So these partnerships allows us to connect directly with your account. Then you can just invite and you onboard your team, which can take a couple of minutes. And then you just go compliant by approving timesheet, running labor distribution, and posting the journal entries. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to follow these steps that Sarah mentioned before. So I wanted them to remind it. So first, an employee needs to track their time. Then it needs to be approved by a supervisor. Third, you run the labor distribution. So you allocated the wages and salaries in the different contracts, and then you post that information in the general ledger. Everything with an audit trail, which should be auditable. So I'm going to change tabs and I will go to WiseCost. So in WiseCost, we have 2 main users. We have the admin user, which is the person in charge of running the labor distribution, setting up the account, approving timesheets, and basically setting up the account. This user can be an external user like an accountant, a CPA, or it can be an internal company user. So we have a few tools for business intelligence, because as Sarah was saying, this is not only important from a DCAA compliance perspective, but also from a business perspective, because the end goal is to know if how is a contract doing. So that's the end goal, including the indirect cost and the labor cost. So here, what we have is all the information, the time activities the employee posted, the timesheets. As you can see, we can reject or approve all the timesheets that were submitted by the employees. We have the payroll periods. So each timesheet should be aligned to the payroll period. We have the labor distribution, which we will run in a few seconds. The journal entries we already posted. So you can see here, we will see this in detail, but you can see here all the journal entries that we prepared. And then we have the company setup, which if you are already familiar with QuickBooks Online, you will see that all these categories are categories from QuickBooks Online. Because the good thing about WiseCost is that you don't need to create anything. So setting up an account in WiseCost can take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on how well structured is your information in QuickBooks Online. So you have, for example, employees. All these employees are the employees you set up in QuickBooks Online. And if you want to onboard them, you can just click here and onboard with his email. You have all the classes, which is the object we use to identify contracts. We have the chart of account, in which we will go deeper in the next session, the customers, the item, and one of the most important pieces, the audit trail. So this is one of the most important pieces in an accounting system. Everything you do should be auditable and should have a trail that nobody can modify. So one of the mistakes we were seeing in government contractors is that they were using, let's say, Clockify for tracking time with the correct approvals and processes, but then they would export that information and they would run the labor distribution in a Google Sheet and then send it to the CPA. And in that process, when the auditor asks you for the trail, you don't have every movement registered in an immutable way. So this was only a quick overview. The other role or user is the employee user, which is a really simple and modern time tracker. You can create time activities, you have timesheets, with different status. In this case, we have a logged, an approved, and a pending timesheet. The pending is because we send it for approval, but the manager didn't approve it yet. You have a clock. Well, I'm not going to stay too much in this user because I think most of you, or probably all of you, used a time tracker in the past. But going back, let's go from creating a time activity to running the labor distribution. In this case, for example, I cannot create a time activity for this period because this is already pending. And one of the compliant rules is that, well, you shouldn't be able to modify after you send it. So if you go to timesheet and you want to run the labor distribution for this period, what you need to do is you need to select the period. We're talking about June, and you need to approve all timesheet. In WiseCost, you can do it in an individual way, or you can do it, you can review here each timesheet, or you can do it all in a bulk. So once you approve all the timesheets and these are all approved, you can run the labor distribution. Again, the labor distribution is the process in which we allocated the wages of the employees in the different contracts. So as you can see, we have 2 periods that are available for allocate. We can start with May. And when you click, well, in WiseCost, we run a health check to make sure that everything is aligned. So we have different smart algorithms that check for anomalies or outliers. And in this case, everything is okay. So you review and adjust, and we tell you how much is the amount per period per employee. These steps are the same steps you need to follow if you are not using WiseCost. So I think this is important. We are calculating the hourly cost by dividing the pay per period by the total amount of hours. And in this case, for the DCAA, it's really important you divide that wage and that salary for the effective hours and not for the total hours. So if your employee is working 40 hours per week, you shouldn't just divide the wage by 40 hours per week. You need to divide by every hour that the employee registered in the time tracker. And this is a really important point. In this case, you can also add adjustments. So sometimes you have a bonus, another tax, or other stuff, but we will go with a more simple way. So if we go to the next step, as you can see, in only 2 seconds, WiseCost calculated the amount per contract. So what we are doing here is we are grouping all time activities from this period by class and employee. So in this case, David Kim has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows in a journal entry in which we allocate part of his salary in the different classes, in the DoD contract, in the DHS contract, as well, in some BMP or PTO. So, and we are doing the same with all the employees. So this is something you would like to see in the output of a labor distribution process. And if we go to the next step, you will see that each of these lines has an account. We configured, and also we have a smart algorithm that recommends you a different account. Most of these accounts are direct labor. So all the billable hours that your employees worked should be flagged as direct labor, or should be labeled as direct labor. And then we can use other type of accounts. For example, we have BMP labor, we have PTO, and those are the main accounts we are using to classify employee or labor costs. And then we have like a credit account. But as you can see, everything is already done and it's really fast. And if everything looks okay, you just post this in QuickBooks Online. So these 3 steps are the steps we saw in this slide: employee log time, supervisor approval, labor distribution, journal entry. These are the 4 main steps of how to classify labor cost, which is one of the most important part of a DCAA compliant system. And if we go to see my journal entries, we see the last one. We also can click here, and this is going to take us to QuickBooks Online, and we will see the journal entry we just posted. As you can see, we have the name, the class, the description. And if we go to profit and loss by class, we have each class with the direct labor allocated in the different classes. If you would add other type of costs, let's say materials or other transactions, this would be also in this P&L classified, and that would be integrated to QuickBooks Online as you usually do. So we are adding all the compliant layer that QuickBooks doesn't have.